Matilda had captured her cousin Stephen, who had stolen the throne from her after her father, King Henry I, died, and he was imprisoned in Bristol Castle. It had been 5 long, arduous years, but the throne of England was in her grasp. The church had finally acknowledged that Matilda was the rightful heir to the throne, and preparations began for her coronation. She traveled to Westminster, where the solemn service would eventually take place. It is at this point that history rears its ugly head at Matilda. At this time in the Middle Ages, the idea of a woman ruling in her own right was still hundreds of years in the future. The chronicles say that Matilda became vain, puffed up, prideful. When she tried to rule like her formidable father or her first husband, who was the Holy Roman Emperor, she found herself at odds with the men around her who thought she should follow the advice that they were giving her. The people of London also began to resent Matilda. They were pro-Stephen because of the trade opportunities he brought through his marriage to his wife Mathilde of Bologne. Her coronation was set for June of 1141, but while Matilda had won the moment, those in support of her cousin Stephen still schemed for a resurgence in the background, and none so much as Stephen's wife Mathilde. She spent every moment she possibly could to try and get her husband out of prison. First, she tried the clergy. She pleaded that they not recognize Matilda as the rightful heir to the throne. But that damage had been done. She then even tried writing Matilda herself, woman, to release her husband. But to no avail. Mathilde decided that direct physical confrontation was the only way, and she began to muster troops. She called on her husband's Flemish mercenaries, as well as a large group from Winchester. When the people of London saw that Mathilde had ordered that the troops rage most ferociously around the city with plunder and arson, violence, and the sword, the people of London decided to join Stephen's wife's cause. A large banquet had been planned for Empress Matilda and the upcoming events surrounding her coronation. But on June 24th, 1141, just as the banquet was to begin, a huge mob of Londoners rose up with weapons in hand and angrily ran towards Westminster. Matilda was chased out of London and fled. Stephen's brother, Henry, the Bishop of Winchester, the man who had helped Stephen get crowned in the first place, and who switched sides to Matilda after the infamous Battle of Lincoln, now switched sides again, back to Stephen at the pleadings of Stephen's wife. As soon as Matilda heard about this, she immediately set forth to the great city of Winchester with her army, led by her half-brother Robert, the Earl of Gloucester, where Henry was. At the news of this, Henry escaped to his palace just outside the city and contacted Stephen's wife Mathilde for assistance. Mathilde quickly assembled men hired by the bishop, a group of her own feudal tenants from where she came from in Bologne, 1,000-man militia from London, the Flemish mercenaries from before, and others who were in support of the imprisoned Stephen. Meanwhile, Matilda and her forces set up in Winchester Castle, and her half-brother not far away near Winchester Cathedral. Matilda's forces began laying siege on the castle where Bishop Henry had retreated to, and Bishop Henry set fire to the city of Winchester. Death and destruction lay all around. Finally, Mathilde had arrived with her relief contingent, blockading Empress Matilda and her army in the city. 2 armies, 2 women. The siege was set. All was left now was to wait, and wait they did. Eventually, Matilda's side started running out of food, Starvation was setting in. Matilda's half-brother Robert knew the situation was not sustainable and wanted to withdraw. On September 14, 1141, Matilda began leaving Winchester. But the moment she did, Stephen's wife Mathilde's army attacked. Matilda was rushed to safety, but the largest part of her army were absolutely decimated. The few remaining men and Robert of Gloucester were surrounded. Robert could do nothing but surrender. Robert was arguably Matilda's most important and central person to her cause, and had gotten her to where she was. He was a skilled general with men at his disposal, and he controlled large areas of land. And now, he was a hostage. It was decided that an exchange of prisoners would take place. Stephen for Robert. And with that, Matilda's best chance of becoming queen was lost. And so the Game of Thrones would continue.